I want you to take a journey with me. 18 months ago, this is a real situation at this company. You had a brand you couldn't make because it was made with like mango paste from the Magdalena River in Colombia. You had a 16% gross margin, which in the beverage industry means you are losing massive amounts of money. You had a team of 4 people and they all sucked. You had 1 customer. You had a public company on the pink sheets with no liquidity, no trading, non-compliant with the SEC, 19 cents of a stock on its way to a penny, and you're behind on payables for 90 days. You owed people probably $250,000. And I go to my wife, and I said, I want to go take this company over. What do you think she said? She said, you are fucking crazy. And then the next thing she said was, you've taken $10 million of my money. I thought it was mine. But she said, you've taken more than $10 million of my money, and you've pissed it away on your last 5 or 6 things. You're cut off. In more ways than one, let me tell you. And you're losing $4 million a year, and you decide against your wife's better judgment, which is always a bad, bad move, to go do it anyway. That's the real case study. What would you guys do? What would be the first thing you do in this situation? Anybody have a guess? What would you do? Put yourself in those shoes. Take this journey with me. What would you do? Say again? Talk to the customer, make sure they're in line. Yep, that's a great idea. Make sure you don't lose that one customer. What else? Say again? Yeah, but if you believe in those 5 languages of love and you recognize she likes acts of service, and which translates to work around the house instead of gifts, probably not a good idea. But so I didn't try that one. I also didn't do any work around the house. Yes, sir?
I would consider simplifying my recipe to cut some costs down.
I think that's a great idea, and that's what I did. I basically just did the math, right? Figure out the recipe, and don't start with what you have. Be clear with what you have, but start and do the math. Look at consumers, look at customers, look at retailers, look at competitors, look at everything, and define what you want to be when you grow up, and then just figure out the roadmap from point A to point B, and that's what we did. So now, 18 months later, from $2 million in revenue, we're approaching $100 million. Those previous 4 people are gone, and we have about 171. Those gross margins went from 16% to 31.9%. We're making $10 million a year. We have an incredibly clean balance sheet, no warrants, no multiple classes of stock, and $60 million of value in that stock. Went from 19 cents in 18 months to roughly $4. And we went from being not even on the map to the 54th largest beverage company, the 8th largest healthy beverage company in the world, and the fastest growing. And the other important metric for me is I wasn't completely cut off because we now have a new baby, and I've changed 250 diapers in the past 12 weeks. My wife calls complete BS on that, but I know it's true. So that's 18 months later. And now we are the New Age Beverages Corporation. We have brands on trend. We have this brand that's tripled, Bùcha Live Kombucha, 2 billion probiotics in it. We have the Marley franchise globally. We have Marley Mate, organic, real, all natural. We've got Marley Cold Brew, launching these brands and these products that are connecting with consumers. 76 million Facebook followers for this brand. We have Coco-Libre. Coco-Libre Sparkling, the first of its kind worldwide. XingTea, all natural, zero sugar. And we've created a new health sciences division with all of these patents we bought from the government. PediaAid, Aspen Pure Probiotic, the world's first probiotic water with 12 billion probiotics, enhanced recovery for the recovering from surgery faster, and now water is life. And our intention here is to provide 100% of the profits for this product and make a difference against the world's water crisis. Anybody know how many people die a day from lack of clean drinking water? Any guess? 10,000 a day. Who's making a difference against it? Nobody. Everybody's posing. So we're out to really solve that problem. But that corporate stuff and new age beverages is not at all what I want to talk about today. You can, and I've seen the agenda, you're going to hear lots of successful presentations and roadmaps to success and all those kinds of things, but I want to get honest, and I want to get real, and I want to get personal. Clayton had a nice introduction for me. I remember when I first met the guy, and I also remember when I first met David and Mark. And I had all of these successes. Worked my butt off for 30 years, went to West Point, missed college by doing that, basically. Business school at University of Chicago, all the right ticket punches. Got to launch Kraft in China. Took this beer company that was nothing that nobody had ever heard of since the year 1366. Started in 2001. 3 years later, we were the world's largest beer company, and I renamed it InBev. Youngest president in Coca-Cola in 100 years. Saved in real cash more than 10 figures of money. And about 10 years ago, lost it all. Not through gambling or any really stupid stuff, but investing in different businesses, trying different things, lost it all. And lost my family. So I move out to the beach in St. Petersburg, Florida, going from a 13,000 square foot house, which in Florida in 2008 was a good way to lose $2 or $3 million. And I move out to the beach to a 1,000 square foot apartment with, frankly, the love of my life that tolerated me even with all my issues, because I lived to work. I didn't work to live at all. So I move out to the beach, and I take these 13,000 square foot of stuff, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, books from dictators and presidents of countries from around the world. And I bring it out, and my wife-to-be at the time just starts crying, just bawling. And she says, all right, it's all going. I had 50 suits, Boss, Armani, you name it. 47 of them never even worn. She says, it's all going. So she puts it out, everything. Everything must go for $1. Everything. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And my next door neighbor comes by, and he was like, all right, who's moving into my hood, driving an Aston Martin with somebody that looks significantly younger than him, barking into my turf? Mark, let me ask you a question.
What's that, Brent?
From the time we first met, how long did it take me to give you my resume?
30 seconds. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this.
And what was your impression from that? This guy's got issues, right? What a douche, right? What an asshole. Seriously.
People around you give the accolade. You don't have to. If you real deal, you don't have to spit out your facts. It's obvious.
Mark called me out. He bought half those suits. He didn't even own a jacket at the time. He bought a bunch of those suits for $1 because my wife said, you don't have the game to wear any of these things. And Mark and my wife and David, to the same respect, said, you know, maybe there's some raw material here worth rescuing. And independent of all those successes, that was my definition of success. I was pursuing money, power, and influence, and I had it. And then lost it all in the span of about a year. But I was still just talking about the resume, talking about this. And nobody cares. And Mark didn't care. He said, hey, if you want to be my friend, or if you want to be friends, or if you want to have a real relationship, let's just be real. Nobody gives a flip about all those successes. If you're a real person, a real guy, let's have a relationship, but don't tell me about your resume every 5 minutes. I don't care. So I think from that experience, we learned humility. And Mark and I tried to do some things together and do some business things together, and we did some pretty extraordinary. We went from $1 million in a particular industry to $70 million in 10 months. Mark had written up in Forbes or Fortune or something, he was a billionaire. And then in about 3 months, the industry and environment changed around us. Things didn't work as we had anticipated, and that $1 billion basically went back to zero. We got out of debt, which is what we were trying to do and our commitment in that thing, but we had another lesson in humility. And I think I want to share this video with you. Hopefully this one works a little bit better than Rachel's. I want to share this video with you, and I want you to think and hear the words that we talk about in this video.
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And it's not where you're from, it's where you're at. Everybody gets knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down. How quick are you gonna get up? How quick are you gonna get up? Everybody gets knocked down. Everybody gets knocked down. How quick are you gonna get up? Just how are you gonna get up?
So everybody gets knocked down. Nobody gets it perfect. Nobody writes the best blog. Nobody writes the best article that has the best impact for their clients. Nobody gets the best ranking on the things that they're trying to do. Nobody gets it all right in relationships every single time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as you're living those right things. So I was pursuing money, influence, and power. Let me ask, who has a number here in mind of how much money they want? Say 10 years or 20 years from now. Or what success in terms of money is important for them. Clayton, how about you?
Money.
How much?
I like money.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you?
Said I like money.
You like money. And do you have a number that you want 10 years from now?
Yeah, I do.
Do
But
you want to share it?
it's enough that I can not make any decisions based on money.
Anybody else want to give a specific number? Come on. None of you guys say, hey, I want $1 million or $100,000 saved or $500,000 saved, whatever it is. 250K saved? And why do you want 250?
It's just enough that if I wanted to make a giant change in their life, I could.
I think that is an interesting answer because when Benjamin Franklin was asked how much is enough money, I think he had the perfect answer. Just a little bit more. And it's always that way, because if you got 250, you might want 300. If Clayton's got 300 million, he might want 400. Whatever the number is, it's always just a little bit more. And for me, those things are like black holes of needs. And if you have the right purpose, it's enough money so I can live, so I can impact, so I can make a difference, so I can not worry about these things, to have freedom, right? For me, pursuing those kinds of values and those kinds of purposes is way more fulfilling. And I can tell you from experience, pursuing the money, power, and influence, and getting the stuff and all the costs that come from that, it's not satisfying. It's just not worth it. What is, and why I think this company is successful, is because we're purpose-driven. We decided to create this company because we were pissed. We said, we knew that 57% of the kids in our country, 8 years old and under, still drink today at least one soft drink a day. 57% of our kids. For the first time in 60 years, diet soft drinks are now declining. And people are realizing that diet is actually not better for you. Diet is actually fake news. It's not a true statement. And all of those artificial sweeteners interact with your pancreas in such a way. I know, I used to make that stuff proudly. It interacts to tell your body to secrete extra insulin and you store fat. So diet is fake news in that regard. But the reason we're successful is not because we had some great strategy. I think in part, like Mark said, is because we've got great people that are all value-centric. They embrace the grind. They got the work ethic. They got the intellectual horsepower, and they're achievers. They're not affiliators. They are achievers. So we have those combinations, but the fundamental reason we're successful, because we're here for a purpose, and that is to make a difference for consumers with healthier alternatives. And coupled with being that purpose-driven company, we're also humble. That I owe, frankly, to my wife Corinne and to Mark and to David for being my mentor on that aspect, just to be humble. And through that humility, we ask ourselves questions, and we ask, how do we do better? At InBev, my marketing budget was 3.3 billion euros a year. That's some bank to spend. What would be your guess of how much we spent on SEO of that 3.3 billion? 1%, 2%, 5%? 100 million, 200 million?
Zero.
Not one penny. And I know the top 50 chief marketing officers out there, the Fortune 50 companies, and they're like me, kind of old school, grew up doing TV advertising and a bit of print and those kinds of things. They can't spell SEO. And there's only 3 letters. Blog, they can't even pronounce it. So let's talk about a case study. Let's talk about this case study and this kind of uneducated buyer, client. And I'm a pretty typical client that doesn't know shit about SEO and blogging. So what do you do with those kinds of clients that are just friggin' clueless? And I know Mark and I know Clayton. I know these guys, so I feel like I know SEO through osmosis just by being friends with those dudes. That still doesn't mean I know anything about SEO. So what do? I do a press release every 2 weeks. Anybody know what a press release costs? Through PR Newswire, for example? $2,000. If you're doing 3 pages, right? And you got to put your safe harbor statements and those kinds of things. So it's about $2,000 or $2,500, and you can do it on the cheap with some of these sites for maybe $300. But let's just say it's on average $2,000. We do 2 a week as a public company, and you do it 50 plus weeks a year. That's $200,000 going towards press releases a year. And heretofore, we now have a partnership with the Hoth, so all of the salespeople at the Hoth, you don't need to cold call me any freaking more. Mark, you can tell Charlie not to cold call me also, because I've had enough of them. We're already in. But we spend $200,000 a year on a press release, on press releases. What would be your guess of our average readership per press release? How many people would you say, just ballpark guess? This public company, fastest growing beverage company on the planet, 8th largest healthy beverage company. What would be your guess of how many people read each press release?
50.
It's not that damn bad, really, seriously. But it is the same point. It ain't much, it's not much better. It's 650. Isn't that pathetic? And we're spending $200,000 on that stuff a year. So, I don't know. Anybody have a suggestion of a better way? SEO? Sounds good. How do you spell it? Blogging, those kinds of things. So, in keeping with being real, and in keeping with being honest, what we decided to do was, all right, well, Brent, you don't have a choice. As the CEO of the company, you have to be congruent with what you're trying to do for consumers. If you really are trying to make a difference for consumers and trying to challenge them to make a difference, to live healthy lifestyles, healthy eating, healthy choices, healthy decisions, and making a difference for the planet, you can't eat 3 quarter pounders a day. And let me tell you, I like quarter pounders. and every time I get a quarter pound meal, I freaking supersize that baby like there's no tomorrow. And I get the large size French fries, and I'll eat 3 or 4 of them at a time, because you can't just put one of those French fries in your mouth. You eat 3 or 4 of those at a time. And then on top of that, I'll go over to Arby's, because their Jamocha shakes are the shiz. So I'll get those Jamocha shakes, and of course I'll get that large Jamocha shake. And there's this ice cream place in Denver where I live. And they make this ice cream once a year called Trick or Treat. And they mix in this ice cream with 15 different kinds of candy bars. And it is freaking awesome. And I recognized that I had an issue when the guy that was having to scoop out this stuff out of those big tubs for these 6 quarts that I was buying, not the little Ben & Jerry's pints that you can go through in like 5 freaking minutes. These are the quarts, and he was scooping out 6. And this is the second time I'd been there in a week. He said, dude, how do you eat all that ice cream? And I didn't have a good answer. And I recognized that. And I said, look, I'm going to stop being hypocritical. I'm going to stop being dishonest with consumers across the world that I'm trying to say, hey, make these healthy lifestyles, healthy choices. And I was not working out, was on an electronic device 10 hours a day, spent less than an hour a day with family. Most every call that came in, I let go to voicemail. No one-on-one times with friends, no personal time, never a date night. So back in my same trap of living to work. So I said, I'm going to make a change. And I actually started a blog. And I actually started to work out and started to eat healthy, to be honest. And that is, I think, this case study with this company. And I want to invite everybody here on this journey with us going forward. Because just as I'm trying to set an example, a personal example of walking the walk and choosing a healthy lifestyle and making a difference for the planet and defining this purpose for this company and living it with passion, because it's just not enough to hit our metrics of 8th largest healthy beverage company in the world, or even number 1. That's shallow. But pursuing our purpose of truly making a difference for consumers, doing it with passion because everybody can really live it, and making a difference, whether it's solving the world water crisis, not by donations or anything, or percentage of the profits. We're giving away 100% of the profits of that brand to this issue. We're putting in solar water filtration, wind-driven units around the world. 300 are going in this month in India alone. So for me, this is the key for success for you guys. It's not pursuing a number. It's not pursuing money, influence, and power. It's defining success as living your purpose, doing it with passion, and making a difference in whatever you want to do. And I want to invite you to be part of our journey to make a difference here. I'm sure you guys have all of your own identities and purposes and things that are really powerful for you. If these things make a difference for you or resonate with you, we want to invite you to be part of this journey and to help us take this blog that we are now doing and get the word out. Help us move on from doing $2,000 a month, a week, twice a week press releases that 650 people see, and get the word out, because every one of those things that you do for this company makes a difference for the people. We get to put in another water unit in Haiti. We get to provide another healthy beverage for somebody else. We get to stop an inner city kid from drinking a soft drink. So I want to invite everybody on this journey with us And I want to ask you guys to benefit from my experience of recognizing we're all going to fail. We're all going to fail every single day. It's okay. All that matters is how quick are you going to get up and get back in the fight and live your purpose. Do it with passion. Write the best article. Write the best blog. Get as much impact as you can with everything that you're doing. If you're up for it, help us because we're trying to make a difference. Be part of this movement to make a difference for the planet. And you can go on our website. You can use this code. You get 25% off on any beverage that happens. A portion of all those profits go to propagating our intent to solve the world water crisis for 1 billion people without access to clean drinking water and the 10,000 that die a day. I want to thank you up front for joining us on this journey and being part of it to make a difference, and want to ask you to benefit from my experience that pursuing money and power and influence is shallow. All of those business successes, the minute you talk to a real guy like Mark or David or Clayton, don't matter at all. Being humble and being purpose-driven, that's what really matters, and that's where the real value is. And all of you guys, with all of your influence and all of your power and all of your ability to connect with people around the world, can help purpose-driven companies like this and can make a real difference yourself. So thank you for joining us on our journey.
Hey, are you still down to do some Q&A? Good for some Q&A? All right, do we have any questions in the audience? All right, we'll go right here.
You mentioned a wife and new baby. How are you able to balance this kind of lifestyle and purpose with your family life?
It's a choice. So now I do so I got to fit in working out now somehow to stop being the lethargic individual that I am. And so I do CrossFit at 5 a.m. And I get up earlier to do that. And then whatever I do with family, I go all in. How many of you guys take your phones to dinner when you're with somebody else? Does your significant other, or whoever you're with, ever get pissed when you're looking at that phone and you're at that dinner or something? Oh, let me tell you, it is a bad, bad move. So you have to be in the moment. And just so what I did as it relates to Coco, so we have a brand called Coco-Libre, so fifth daughter, I ran out of names, so we just called her Coco. And I created a model, right? And that's kind of how I think. I said, look, here is current reality. Here's what success looks like, and here's all the metrics that I want. Weight, body fat, amount of one-on-ones with people in the office, number of calls that go to voicemail, number of hours on the computer each day, date nights a month, amount of time with family. And so I established what the honest facts were, and then I established what my milestones were and my future milestones on all of these things in my blog. And then I took a picture of what I personally look like today, which was...
Why didn't we show him?
No freaking way. Are you kidding? There's no way to...
Show us that blog.
I'm not... What, do you want me to lift up my... There's no way I'm lifting up my shirt. I don't have... Do I have it? Oh, it's not on here, so it's there. They don't have it. Thank goodness. So, but I showed 30 years ago, fairly buff. 15 years ago, fairly buff. Today, not. So I established all these metrics and put it out there with basically half-naked picture on the internet, and all my investors are saying, Brent, we're tired of seeing your sparrow chest, basically. I established all those metrics. And so for me, it is figuring out where you are today, getting your clear metrics for the future, putting a stake in the ground. I mean, after, side story, for 606 years, since 1366, nobody had ever heard of this little Belgian beer company. We took this brand called Stella Artois that the board wanted to kill. It was a farmer's beer in Belgium. It was the #3 beer in Belgium. We sexed it up. We put it into chalice glass, did a bit of marketing behind it, put some French advertising, launched it around the world. Turned out to be successful. It was the cheapest beer we made in the entire portfolio. Rapidly fermented it in 7 days. Good quality ingredients and stuff, great beer, but charged the highest price for it. Starbucks-ized that bitch. But it was still beer. So, so the model for me, and I would encourage you guys to think about it, and it's on our blog too, is define where you are. Pick whatever target you want to achieve. Just put a stake in the ground because you can do anything you want. We took that company after 606 years of being an also-ran, and in 3 years' time, with Belgians, which is really hard, in foreign languages, became the world's largest beer company, beating Anheuser-Busch, beating SAB Miller, beating Heineken, beating all of these companies around the world in 3 years' time. We took a company against multi-billion-dollar industries and went from 0 to 70 million. Against Coke and Pepsi here. You know, we're crushing their coconuts. And we've gone from $2 million losing $4 million a year with no money whatsoever, carving out our niche, carving out our opportunity. So for me, it's A, define your current reality. B, define whatever success it is. C, get your roadmap from point A to point B, and it's not going to be linear. It's going to be this winding road, but picture out that roadmap, including all the obstacles and everything, and get your interim milestones along the way to get from point A to point B. And then the next thing you got to do is, I think, strike out. And it's going to be wrong, but you got to get the courage to, what I'd say is cross the can't change creek. Because if you're like me and you've been eating McDonald's and Arby's and stuff for 20 years, I mean, it's hard to cut that stuff out. When you go to the airport and McDonald's is the only thing that's open at the airport at 4 in the morning, I mean, it's hard to just say no. And it's hard to get your ass out of bed at 4:30 to get into CrossFit at 5 a.m. So you got to cross the can't change creek and start out, and then you'll start to build the muscle memory and momentum. So that's what we did from a business standpoint in every one of these walks, and I'm just taking that same model from a personal standpoint to get the metrics, get the milestones, and say, look, I'm going to choose and I'm going to carve out and I'm going to be in the moment for at least 2 hours a day with family and daughter and those kinds of things, and I'm going to call my mom once a month or twice a month or whatever it is. So just get those metrics, and I'd encourage you to look at our blog or my blog, and if it helps, from a personal standpoint, great, but it's not easy. Sorry for the 20-minute answer to a good question, right? Yes,
hey,
sir.
Can you share,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off. I'll come over there with the mic in 1 second. Could you share the URL of your blog?
I don't even know it. I just write it. But it's on shop. I think it's on.
It took a long time to get him to do this, but it's shop.newagebev.com, and then under blogs, it's called Words from Our CEO.
Okay, so it's on there.
I just sent Mark the link in text if he wants to blow it up.
I put it on LinkedIn, and it's had like 50 likes and 4,000 views, which I don't know if that's a lot or not, but for me, that's kind of weird to see 4,000 views on LinkedIn in a week. But the problem is, if you're out there and you say you're going to do this, I mean, there's just no going back, right? You have to live it, right? Because then you're a hypocrite if you don't, right? So, but why did we do it? Not because I did want to make the personal change, but I want to make, we want to reach as many people as possible about what this company is all about, of inspiring people to healthy living, healthy lifestyles, and making a bloody difference, right? Because
Brent is the voice of New Age. He's the voice of our
yeah, there's no choice.
and
Yeah, there's no choice. You have to be it if you're a CEO of a company. Yes, sir. Cool.
Your background is beverage, obviously. Your growth has been very impressive, but how much do you attribute your growth to your background in your previous industry contacts versus going back to just basics and acting like a startup? Did you leverage a lot of your old industry contacts to propel that growth that you've had over the last 18 months, or did you really have to start from kind of ground up?
It's a great question. I mean, there's a difference if you're, I was just the number 2 at the big beer company. And when you're managing like a $40 billion company, you got 50 MBAs that you can give stuff to. You're not a frontline platoon leader doing those kinds of things. So it is very different if you're a small company. Every penny is important. You're managing cash. My rounding error for expenditure at InBev was $100 million. Here, it's $1, and every single dollar is important. And so it's a completely different skill set. You think in the same way. You apply those same models of where are you today, what does success look like, what are all the milestones that you got to get there. But I actually think the lessons learned on leadership, the lessons learned on mission accomplishment, the lessons learned on integrity at West Point is way more valuable than any specific beverage lessons or industry-specific lessons. And so that's why I think for everybody here, any industry knowledge is relevant for consumers, but is really overrated. And what is relevant is figuring out whatever the passions are and figuring out those models and having the ability to do the math, to analytically decipher how to create competitive advantage in whatever space. And so I've worked in ammunition, I've worked in tobacco, I've worked in beer, I've worked in soft drinks, I've worked in processed food. I even used to manage Velveeta, of all things. So, you know, it's all different from an industry standpoint, but those principles, and that's why I wanted to share that model with you, for me is the same every time and has worked, and now I'm applying that to my personal life also. Yes?
I hope this isn't like weird or off topic, but I think when you're talking about your roadmap and you're talking about your purpose, I see that you guys have this Waters Love Filter straw that you guys are offering for Puerto Rico, and that's really great to see. You know, I woke up this morning to the news that like FEMA's going to cut budgeting for that, and I wonder if like how, you know, a corporatist would say that like you're there to like help supplement existing efforts. When the existing efforts dry up, like what do you see is the future for sponsorship for companies like yours as you grow and you have more influence and have more power? You know, how do you see that changing in this current environment? I'm just curious because we're talking personal stuff. So.
Yeah, no, well, and for me, it's all personal, right? So anybody can tell you about the successes of their company. What matters is what matters to you personally, what matters to me personally, and can we make a difference together? So I always kind of figure you can control your own behavior and what you do, and you can't worry about the environment around you. And as much as I love our government and everything we do, I'm not going to trust FEMA for anything. I'm not going to trust water.org. I'm not going to trust Bill Gates. I'm not going to trust any of those people that are going to make a difference against water. All I know is what we can do, and all I know is we put in 20 of these beautiful water filtration units that don't require any electricity, that are driven by solar and this. And we've put in 20 of these big units in Haiti in the past year. We put them in Guatemala. And we want to find $1 billion to put in 20,000 of these around the world, and that will cover 1 billion people. So the reason that we are doing all these initiatives is because we're just not going to worry about anybody else, and we don't want to raise money. We want to actually make a difference and put stuff in place versus just giving money to charities. So I don't think FEMA or any one of these guys, 'cause, they just give all the money away to their organizations that they support anyway, instead of physically making a difference for 5 or 10,000 people at a pop, which is what we do. So, great,
Got any
guys.
more
Thank
questions?
you. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, you've had lots of different business partners over the years, and now you have a successful partnership. So I'm curious how you define your partnership and how do you make it a successful business partnership?
And can you expand on the questions?
Well, because like you had partnered with Mark, is that correct? And then, so do you, is somebody an investor and silent partner, or are you guys 50-50? And how do you make that relationship cohesive to be successful in these new
I think that when Mark and I did something together, he and I were aligned, which is why we're still friends, and we had the same value set. We were surrounded by a bunch of hoodlums and not such good, honest guys. And we figured out that, boy, those things are just such a drag on your life. And going back to my personal model, one of the things I'm doing is just I'm extricating myself from all of those people that I don't really love and aren't aligned with kind of what I stand for and the same kinds of things. So I think number one is having that common value set, and that's the starting point. And then number two is having an aligned purpose together. So once you get that defined purpose, you have to align it with everybody. And unless you align it, whether it's with investors, your own associates to buy off on whatever that vision is, defining it is not enough. So I kind of describe it as define, align, and refine. So first you define whatever that success is and the common goal. You align to that common goal, figure out who's going to do what to achieve it based on different skill sets, and then you refine it over time, hitting those milestones and adjusting along the way. I know it sounds stupid of define, align, and refine, but get the right common values that you're going to operate together as a group, and then apply that model. And for me, that's been successful.